I'm Brian Bravati, I'm Academic Director of the Beyond Borders Centre. We run international festivals and fellowship programs in conflict-affected countries. So the festival is a festival of literature and thought, and the thought part is often about small Dacian dialogue. So we bring people from around the world who are in conflict situations, and we bring them together in this incredibly beautiful place. And the installation focuses on the events in northern Iraq, which happened last August. So I helped the artist, Simon Scammell-Katz, bring him together with Falah Sharouk, who is an aid worker in northern Iraq.
I am Simon Scammell-Katz and I'm a visual artist. I've been doing some work with Beyond Borders and a charity called Wadi in northern Iraq. Last summer, Islamic State pushed up into the northern part of Iraq and displaced a number of religious minorities, including the Yazidi. So this film here is made with Falah, who's the colleague who works in the camp for the charity Wadi.
ISIS targeted the girls. ISIS, as I said, when they targeted this society, they killed the boys. But it's a question of honor. So ISIS tried to dishonor this small minority group. It's a minority group of 400,000 people, and they take the girls. So, because when you harm a girl, you harm a society in our region.
He started to notice that coming into the refugee camp where he worked were some of the girls that had escaped from IS, and he would be part of the committee that would be welcoming them into the camp, and he'd be talking to them. And he started taking photographs of their shoes. They're a very traditional religious community, so having been through the experience that they'd been through, taking photographs of them and their faces was too much for them. So he started taking photographs of their shoes, which he sent to me. And that's the inspiration for the installation. And what we've tried to do is use the shoes to talk about the Yazidi girl's story. This is a story of a little girl called Not. She's 10 years old. She was captured along with her parents and 7 of her siblings. She managed to escape, but her family is still in captivity.
We were obliged to be Muslim and pray by force. I miss my parents and siblings a lot, and my only hope is to see them again.
In putting this installation together and asking the girls if they could give us their shoes, Not gave us her shoes, and in return we gave her a couple of new shoes, and she was absolutely delighted with that new pair of shoes. It made her feel very happy.
The Yazidis are a small minority group within the Kurdish people, so they speak a version of Kurdish. They have ethnic links with the Kurds, but they're separate and distinct, and they have their own very early neo-Christian religion. Now, the Yazidis are a very, very close-knit community, and there are only 400,000 or 500,000 of them in a very concentrated area around Mosul. So when Daesh attacked Mosul, a large chunk of the Yazidi population came under their control. It's a very patriarchal society, and that's another problem for some of the girls, because in some cases they're then rejected by their own families when they return, because there's a huge tradition of virginity.
This is a story of two sisters who we've called Red and Socks. Red was 19 and they were captured in August 2014. Their father had actually already died and her mother had remarried, so they were spending a lot of time with their uncle who looked after them, who then became their protector.
That day when Daesh entered Mosul, most of the people fled into the mountains, but a lot of Daesh's guards came and arrested them. They shouted, "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar," while shooting randomly. In Syria, people were coming to look at us and buy us daily. This was like a jail. They insulted us a lot and fed us once a day. Socks had long hair. She lifted her hair up in order not to be seen. She was scared a lot. Many times they said they would kill her and she would always hide behind me. We were raped by someone, every one of us or the other.
About 4,000 or 5,000 women and girls in all were taken by Daesh last summer. Around about 400 or so over that time have managed to escape, and they do that in a number of different ways. There have been ransoms paid by the Kurdish regional government and by some individuals to Daesh to release the girls. And that's obviously quite problematic. You save the girls, but you're giving money to this organisation.
This story here is Brown. She's 14 years old, and she's now back living in a refugee camp. She actually did escape, as a lot of the community did, to Mount Sinjar as the IS forces advanced. But they escaped from the mountain, but were then captured by ISIS. There are about 45 girls in the group that she
We were 45 girls, some as young as 12. Every day Daesh came and chose a beautiful girl for raping. One night it was my turn. Later they sent me to Syria to stay with a man called Abu Khattab. One day he and his friends went to a battlefield in Hasaka. Then I managed to escape. I knocked to a door and asked them to help me. This family asked my parents to pay a big amount of money, $4,500. It took some time until my family managed the money.
They found themselves, in some cases, remarkably close to their homes. They literally, in some cases, knock on the door of a house and hope that a friendly voice answers the door. Some of the instances that are told in the installation, that did indeed happen, and then they phoned the girls' families, and there's often exchange of money then, but the girls are rescued. In other cases, people were too scared to help them, and they then had to walk to another location to find somebody who was prepared to help them.
This story here of Cross and Buckle. Cross was 19, Buckle was 26. And their story is fairly similar to a lot of the other stories that we've been hearing about. They were bought and they were sold. This story sadly starts to bring in the story of suicide. These girls who come from this traditional community where they're not sure of the reception they're going to have when they get home.
We knew one of the other captured girls. She was from Koju. Daesh put each one of us in a room to rape us. We had been sold to people from Libya, Azerbaijan, and Saudi Arabia several times. They raped girls as young as 8 in front of us.
The Islamic State has made an edict that their fighters are allowed to take Yazidi girls as wives. And some of these girls are as young as 8, 9, 10. And they're sold from fighter to fighter. They're also sold to people in the Gulf Azerbaijan, Pakistan. So it's a human trafficking story in the context of a genocide story, which is the destruction of the Yazidi people. So some of the girls kill themselves rather than return to their community. Some of the girls are rejected when they do return. The head of the Yazidi church has now said that we need to show compassion to these girls. We need to change our culture because of what's taken place, which is a remarkable thing. But I think it's still very difficult. Others have been welcomed back by their families, and others are being cared for by organisations like Falal's organisation, Wadi, who have created shelters to try and give them therapy, post-traumatic stress disorder recovery, and try and get them to re-enter their society. The installation is trying to raise awareness of genocidal acts that have taken place. Now, what usually happens with genocide is that it's a long time after the event before it's recognised as genocide by the international community. The definition of genocide is the destruction in whole or in part of a nation or a people, defined by who they are. So Daesh have decided that Yazidis will not live on the same planet as the new caliphate that Daesh is trying to create. What we're trying to do is say, let's not wait until long after this event. Let's hear the voices of the victims now, and let's recognise that genocidal events have taken place here.
One can only imagine the despair of the 4,000 or so women that are still held in captivity. If you go now to Yazidi towns and villages, you basically don't see young women there anymore. It's really weird walking through the villages, and the community is bare of young women.
The testimonies in the installation are all anonymous because these girls are extremely traumatised. They're in a very difficult position. But part of recovery is telling your story, telling your life story, telling the story of what happened to you, to others. And those others making sure that you know you're not to blame is a really important stage in recovery. But you don't recover completely. In the same way that a society never really recovers from genocide, individuals never really recover from this kind of violence.
قالك عاشق وفيندار اجبد النايب مراس كرنوشان